Hello everybody, Mira here. In this video I'm going to show you how to fix some common issues when importing FBX OBJ files into Unreal. And those are smoothing groups and some scaling and transform issues. This happens quite often, and I want to point out something before you start messing around with this. If you're making your own 3D models, then fix those issues on your side. I mean, in your 3D modeling applications. So you go and Google, if your 3D modeling application is, let's say, Blender, you say Blender export to Unreal Engine 4. What settings should I use? And you go and use those settings and do not get the issues. But if you get some 3D models from some website and they do not work properly, I'm going to show you how to fix those issues. And how did, I decided to make this video. I played around with assets from kenny.nl website. So I've downloaded this natures kit, I downloaded these characters and some other stuff, but for this video I'm going to show you 3D characters in this nature kit because I want to show you how to do this for skeletal meshes and from static meshes. So skeletal meshes are animated, static meshes are they are static. So yeah, and I made a third person project. So just launch the engine and you can go in any project and follow along. But I have a third person project. So yeah. That's that. So let's start. I already messed around with this, so I have it in downloads and I just unzipped those two packs, and we're going to check first the characters. So I'm going to grab the name and make a new folder, and I should. Okay. There are two versions. Actually, there are also non-rigged versions of the characters, but there are two versions of the characters. I will just show you on this basic, but the procedure is the same for the other characters. So bring your FBX file into Unreal and just let it go, do its thing. And okay. You should check import skeletal mesh and import mesh, and these two options should be checked. I don't recommend for this instance checking import materials, but it's usually better to make your own materials in Unreal. But if you have some 3D models that let's say you have 100 3D models that you want to import, like we are going to do with those static meshes, I'm going to check these and let it import materials that are not that optimal, but still I don't want to work and replace all the materials. So here it is, the issue: no smoothing group information was found in FBX scene, and so on and so forth. So how do we fix this? Well, if we open the character, we can see a few things. First of all, we have this. You can already see what's wrong with it. Let me turn the camera speed down. There's some like issues with lights, and that's not good. So let's fix that. You go into import options of your asset and mesh, and scroll down. And you don't want to be computing normals, you just want to import them, and you set re-import mesh, and bam, it's fixed, kinda. And if we wanted to now, we could quickly make a material for him. I'm not going to make any fancy material, though I'm very much tempted. I'm going to make a simple material, and I'm going to grab that texture. Here the skins, and I'm going to make I think I like this one with a robot, and just going to drop that one and then drag it into material, drop it here, pop it into base color. This is not a tutorial for materials, so I'm doing this really fast, so I don't waste your time if you're not interested in that. And then you're going to grab the material, open the character, and just pop it in. Did I grab the material? No, I didn't. So grab the material and just drop it in and save your character. So now when you drag him into your scene, it's going to have materials. So drag him in, and he's super duper tiny. That's one problem. And let's see if his pivot is actually also okay. If we look at this character, he's looking in positive X, and this guy is not looking in positive X. So let's rotate him 90 degrees, and then they are basically the same. Now we have to actually we rotate him around the z-axis, but I was looking at positive x, in which direction is he looking at. Now we have to scale him to make him the same height as this guy. If you don't have third person character in your level, you can also use in engine content, just type tutorial character, and you have this guy, which is actually, he's a bit taller than this guy, but yeah, you can use him as a reference. Or you can, if all things kind of go, just drop the brush and make it maybe 117 to Z and just drop it down to the floor and do it that way, so you can figure out how tall you want to make your character. Since we do not have animations for him, I won't, and this tutorial is not for that, but we could replace this mannequin with this character now if we had animations. He's kind of done. And almost done, I would say. Since we scaled him here, if we would I don't like to have this initial scale here and this rotation for the character. I want to handle that on an import. So let's handle it on an import. So I want to rotate him minus 90 on a Z and scale it up 11 times. So let's go into transform, rotation, and we said minus 90 and uniform scale. We want to scale him up 11 times. And let's re-import the mesh. And now his proper scale, I think this is way better to do it this way, since then if you're looking at the character here in this, it was persona, I think, this window here. They've changed the name, so I'm not sure if it's persona or, well, the animation view. Here we have the proper scale here, and everything is... this is for something else. I went into skeleton there, so yeah, that is, and you have to reset the scale and rotation now, since we fixed it. Now let's look at some static meshes. So I'm going to bring in that folder again and actually go into this nature kit, maybe grab the name and make new folder. And this is completely unnecessary since we're doing a tutorial. Okay, downloads and nature kit and models, and they have OBX. I was going to say OBS, that's what I'm using to record the video, but OBJ, GLTF and FBX formats. I think I used OBJ, worked better for me than FBX with these models, but let's try FBX again for this. So let's grab, find something that you think you can guess how big it is to start with. I found, let's try, I found this fence. I thought that would be a good reference. So I will drag that in and see how that works first. Then I will drag the other assets. You can drag all of them and then I will show you how to apply all the changes to all the assets after you import them. But for now, I just want to import this one and see what happens, because I might decide to use OBJ instead. So no smoting group information found in and so on and so forth. Let's bring it in and see what's going on. So what I had issues with FBX files is that I got my transform imported really weirdly, so that's kind of a thing. And other thing, I would probably want to rotate it like 90 degrees in Z again and scale it up. This is going to be really painful, since the more I scale it, the more it's going to go into distance. So let's bring it here. Like I said, it's a pain. And maybe I think I went with 40-ish. So I would say maybe even, actually it's not even, so let's say 40. And now it's I think this is maybe less, maybe 38 would be, or even 36, let's say. So if our character is near a fence, I think that's kind of appropriate. Maybe even 35. Really depends how tall you want that fence to be. So you should definitely try out few assets before you commit to applying the scale and rotation to all of them. But I will just do it with this fence for now. So we had that same issue with smoothing groups, and here the window is a bit different. That is why I want to show you the skeletal mesh and the static mesh in one video. So let's deal with this one. And we also didn't import materials, which is a mistake in this instance, since we have that pack has too many materials to go and make materials for every object. That would be insane. So we can also, let's see, is that in miscellaneous, or I thought we could tell it to import materials again, but looks like we cannot after the fact. So you have to decide if you want to import materials or not. So first, let's fix that stupid issue with that persisted import normals. Where's the reimport mesh? I know I can re-import it from here. If I right click, then re-import. I usually do it that way. Successfully re-imported is I think it's fixed now in terms of, okay, this is going to be a pain because it's really small. So we said we want to scale it up 35. So let's scale it 35. And there's probably a re-import in one of these windows, but I'm not seeing it. Or maybe it's somewhere in here. Let's do it the other way. So just right click, re-import, and reset this transform. But we still have this issue with this transform going off in a distance. So what we could do is try that. As you can see, it's way off there. We can try that OBJ format instead, or we could mess around with some of the options that might help. So in import, we can try, I think is this transform vertex to absolute. I think that's kind of helped. And this is experimental, so maybe not going to work. So let's try that and save and re-import. I think this is going to mess up something else. So with that done, our rotation is now even weirder. And let's actually, since we do not know how big it needs to be, let's reset that. And okay, the scale, and let's save it. So this is, you have to go back and forth until you figure it out. So what do we need to do here is rotate it, but that then our pivot point is in a really weird position. We could call the alt and drag it, which would help, but we are snapping. But that's really not working as I wanted it to work. So let's try that. I mean, we could make it, but we would need to scale it again. We have to figure out by how much. I think this is going to be a lot. So we need to scale it, and this pivot point is really not working for me because I cannot really snap it properly to the grid. I can, but it's kind of super weird, and it needs to be scaled maybe 16. I mean, I have to bring it towards the character there, but 20 times maybe. So we could go and say, hey, go and scale, where are import options? Okay, scale by 20, save, re-import, and that didn't help at all. So sometimes your FBX is going to be really annoying and not going to give you the results, but thankfully with this particular assets we also have the OBJ, so you could mess around and figure it out, but this is really not the best solution is to bring it in your 3D modeling application, but that takes a lot of time. You could build some custom script to do this instead of you doing it manually, but that's really out of the scope, and we want to try to figure it out without doing some really insane solution. So let's find that fence again and bring in OBJ this time. And we want to check some options. I'm going to import materials this time. In textures, it doesn't have textures, but I'm going to import the materials and import, and yeah, we get no smoothing groups information and so on and so forth. Let's bring it in and try to make this one work. So this time, as you can see, we also have the material, and the thing is under the floor. So let's first of all rotate it 90 degrees. Then I also want to rotate it this way. Come on, work with me, 90 degrees. And we have a perfect pivot point this time, at least. And I think with OBJ it was 40-ish. It's kind of the same scale as before, maybe 35. So, but the pivot point, at least with this, works properly. So if you get some assets that are exported in OBJ and the other one, and that new one, GLTF, which is currently in beta, if you go into plugins, you can even try that. But there's no perfect solution in this case. You have to play around and figure it out on your own. We're getting those weird issues with normals, so let's fix that. I will bring this here like this so I can also see what I rotated and so on. Where are my import options? So we don't want to why is this being weird? Built-in, and I will say to import everything. And let's deal with this scale. So I will say 35, and we rotated the thing around X by 90 and Z by minus 90. So let's save this. And I think this didn't work. I don't know why it remembered the other import maybe, but when we were importing it, it was set to build the use McT space and build the tangents. So let's see if this helps. So re-import, and it's going to be super huge, and we need to reset everything. Oh man, this is super awesome. So now when you want, actually we are still getting shading issues. We haven't fixed it yet. So let's see, import normals. Why is this giving me so much grief? It kinda, no, it's not okay. It should look like the character looked, so. It's so random at times. Maybe need to save it before. Re-import. Let's try. Let's try to bring another one. So I'm going to make a new folder and bring it again into that folder. Fence. Okay. So let's see what was checked. It was set on input normals. So let's try to compute them. Maybe it's going to work. That really does depends on the mesh. So where are you? Re-import. Oh yeah, we fixed it. So looks like when this thing happened, it worked. So it's definitely better. Yeah, this is shading properly now. It's kind of double check, but yeah, I think this is fine. So you kind of do not know what's going on in the file that you got. You maybe have a file that has smoothing groups or doesn't have them, or you need to import the normals. You might need to import the tangents also. Maybe you have to set it on the other normal generation method, but it's really going back and forth until you figure it out. And this video had to be really long because if I don't show you my process to get it working and you download some random assets from the internet, it's not going to work for you. So that's kind of deal. So let's delete this and let me show you how you can apply this to all of the assets that you maybe brought in later on. So actually I want that new folder. So I'm going to import all of the assets here. So I want to view them as details and sort them by type. So I can grab just OBJs. Okay. And let's say we bring all of this in. And we didn't know what options we want. Let's say it was set up wrong. At least make sure you set import materials, because you cannot mess around with that, as it seems. And let's say we imported all of this stuff. How would you... I mean, you could delete all of them and re-import them again, but that is... not the ideal way to work. So I'm going to introduce you to bulk edit via property matrix. That's a long name of a really powerful tool in Unreal. And that's the last thing that I want to show you in this video. It's already way too long, so the last thing. that we're going to do. So no smoothing groups and yada yada. So let's open this thing. I want to have it as a reference to see what I did here, and have it small maybe. I don't care about 3D view. Okay, it's compiling a ridiculous amount of shaders. This is why I do not really like importing materials this way. I want to have material instances, but in this spec you have to import them this way because you would have to make a ridiculous amount of material instances, and that's simply not worth the time. So how do you fix all of these assets at the same time? First of all, you want to grab just static meshes. So sort by static meshes, since this is also importing materials. And press Ctrl A to select all of them. And then right click on any of them, asset action, bulk edit via property matrix. And that's going to open a window that is going to allow you to edit options on all of those assets at the same time. So in import options, we said we wanna compute normals, and we also said that we wanna mess around with scale and other things. So I have to figure out how much we were messing with that. So transforms. Let's bring this window like this. We were rotating. So rotating by 90 degrees and by Z by -90. And these shaders are simply being annoying. And we want to scale it by 35. And it's kind of compute, yes. And you go save all. So if you already have some assets imported and you want to fix all of them at the same time, you just figure out what you want to do to the one asset, and then you apply all of the settings to all of the assets. So I'm going to stop here and wait for this thing to save because it's compiling shaders at the same time, then we'll continue. So it has finally compiled all the shaders, which was pretty annoying. So I'm going to save all of this and close it, and then we're going to re-import everything. So just click re-import and engine is going to go a bit crazy on you. So see you in a bit. Okay, with that out of the way, let's look at what we get. So all the meshes are correct scale, but it looks like I messed up with the rotations on them. Oh man, that is something that I should not have done. Okay, so my engine is probably going to crash. See you in a bit. Well, it didn't crash, but still it kinda... I wasn't sure if it's going to crash, so I stopped the recording. And we messed up the rotation, so I guess I estimated wrong, or I punched in the wrong values, but you kind of get the idea what's kind of going on here. So use your use one mesh, figure out what the rotation scale and everything is, and then apply that rotation to the other meshes and hope for the best, because this is just maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. It's always better if you have your own assets to work with. So guys, if this helped you out, make sure you like the video, also subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one.